This is part 3 of the true singularity. It's really necessary for you to listen to part 1 and part 2 before you get here. In the other 2 parts, I was primarily reading to you from a 1996 issue of Temple Doors in regard to the various energy bodies, not just energy bodies, but states of being. Merkabic states, I think would be a better term, that the soul does enter, can enter, will enter, and has entered. Pretty well covers the gamut. So what is this true singularity? It is being in a state that is so advanced on an energy and spiritual level that we really can't comprehend it from this reality zone. We can in a way. There's certain touch points we can understand intellectually and even to some degree emotionally. But the closest we can come to experientially would be dream state. Not nightmares, but really nice, clear, very clear dreams in which you felt so good and so alive that perhaps they weren't even dreams. Perhaps they were out of body or remote viewing, but something that triggered that deep inner resonance of aliveness and being present with every single moment. So we have had some touch points with it, but of course that's not living it all the time, and even in a more advanced mode than that. So that's what we have to look forward to, but at the same time, that's a limiting statement, isn't it? Looking forward to it, because that's suggesting that we can't have it now. And, you know, maybe we can't in the sense of logical experience. But if we close that door completely, then we're going to miss out on the things we can experience from it, the deeper resonance we can bring into our current reality, at least the fringes of something beyond what we're living in now. So that's what we're looking at. That's where we're going. That's where we, in a way, are, because we're multidimensional beings, so we're already there. But our experience, our conscious experience that I'm sharing with you now in this state of being is not there yet. But it can draw upon it like a deep well, like from a deep well. It's also important to realize that this is not just about a feel-good thing, or even getting healthier and experiencing loving life better, and all of this is wonderful, but it's about where we go as a tribe, as a race, as a unit of consciousness that we co-design together. Now, granted, we are leaving behind gradually, but faster every day, the old blood tribal relationship. But there's a new tribe. There's a tribe of the white stone, the tribe of the grace of the Christic light, of the all-encompassing now, of the spiritual presence that is so abiding and full that we are a tribe of beings that experience it together. So tribe does not just relate to blood consciousness. It's been used a great deal in that awareness, and still is continuing. But that tribal experience is a closed circuit. You feed the serpent and it feeds you back. You feed the serpent and it feeds you back. You feed the serpent and it feeds you back. The tribe of the white light, the tribe of the white stone, the tribe of grace, the tribe of the Christic being, that is one that is open-ended. It's a toroidal field. It's a torus, a moving Selah torus that is taking us onward, inward, beyond, and never returning us to where we were before. And so it breaks free of the constraints of what we call karma. Thoth doesn't even like that word, and all limitations. It doesn't make for a perfect reality in the sense that you just snap your fingers and boom, you're in this toroidal field and all is light and love and perfection. The toroidal field that I'm speaking of, that this new tribe is developing in, is evolutionary still. So there are stages of it. Even as Thoth has said all along, the Kyi'Ra star is evolutionary. But it's a finer gradient of evolving, much finer gradient. And it takes you out of the slow, periodic table of events and consequences. It develops in you a true knowing of the end result. And there really is no end result. Let's scratch that word, of the greater result. But at the same time, that greater result is not your goal. Your goal is simply to live in the moment and to do so with absolute integrity and heart-centered consciousness. When you do that, then your now moment encompasses everything, including your so-called goal, which is oblivious at that point. So why is it important now to realize that the Adam Kadmon template is transforming? We are transforming. We have all these different bodies we're working with, the Zohar and the Zeta. And the Zeta is especially important to us because we're experiencing Zeta moments, as I talked about in the last episode. And with this critical rotational position advancement, this is key. This is absolutely key on the planet because it defines the critical rotational position of the brain on the spine, on the stem of the spine, as it moves into those synchronous little motions in the head, in the fluid around the brain. The signals it gives off and receives from outer stimulus. You see, the critical rotational positions are determined by outer stimulus. They are not determined by inherent DNA factors. So when our outer stimulus becomes advanced so that we are receiving stimuli that is not simply within the cloaking reality of day-to-day life, and from Donald Trump to Pepsi Cola, we're receiving stimulus that goes beyond that, because that's what's happening right now. The crown chakra of the Ascension Temple is opening up. The soft spot is being revealed. And the sacred on is pumping those energies from the, it's coming from the, I can't say all my terms now, Adonai Kodesh chamber of the Temple of Morning Star, through the Manasari of the sacred on, coming down through that crown chakra into the whole field of the earth. And remember, we have those light language symbols, those new ones that are spilling out literally on the land. All of these things are being picked up by the expanded view of our sensory perceptions. And this begins not in a conscious way. You're looking and saying, well, I don't see anything, I don't feel anything different. It's not begun in a conscious way. It's begun in a subconscious, subliminal way. Even subconscious might not be the right word. It's a subliminal way, like putting, the homeopathic drops under the tongue. And it's concentrated, and it will develop and build into our systems. However, in order for us to truly lap up this new development, we need to have our critical rotational positions adjusted so that the brain-mind complex is more acutely aware of the stimuli that is now being presented. And that's where this whole game changer comes into play. Well, I decided to go back to source issue 183. So that's 1983, folks, to read you more about CRPs. This was when it was first introduced to me by Thoth. Now remember, the term critical rotational position, CRPs, is already in use by scientists that were studying plants. But Thoth took it and applied it to brains as well and a lot of other things. So here's what was said about it. Sir Chandra Bose, no, that's not right, Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose, botanist of India, discovered in the early 1900s the similarities between the human and vegetal condition. In The Secret Life of Plants, Bose's work is related. Quote, he designed a special optical lever with which he was able to demonstrate visually that all of the characteristics of the responses exhibited by animal tissues were also found in those of plants. Bose held that the isolated vegetal nerve is indistinguishable from the animal nerve. Quote, so complete indeed has that similarity been the responses of plant and animal, of which this is an instance been found, wrote Bose, that the discovery of a given responsive characteristic in one case has been proven a sure guide to its simpler conditions of the plant, has found fully sufficient for its elucidation under the most complex circumstances of the animal, unquote. In the greater scientific universities of Subterranea, now we're going into inner earth here, the biological relationship of man and animal with the vegetal kingdom and the subsequent symbiosis of all living systems with the geologic condition of the planet is a supreme knowledge developed to embrace the qualification of the entire human sojourn on and in earth. At the center of this knowledge is the human brain-mind complex. This and soul network of neural impulses and cognitive imagery is both the instigator and ultimate receptor for all earth responses. As we think, so we are. The elements are impacted thought waves infused with the wisdom of creation. We see and hear through a limited spectrum designed by our brain-mind complex to accommodate the infinite range of our awareness of spirit, which in turn is our ability to comprehend the infinite. One of the most essential branches of human earth sciences, and certainly one of the most complex, is geocerebral alignment. This is the function of the brain in which it is attuned to a particular amplitude of the Earth's geodynamic register through the rotation of the cerebral matter of the brain within its liquid cushioned cavity to a critical rotational position, CRP, in sync with a particular georegister. From the center of the Earth's inner sun is emanated a pulse, which in turn is emitted as a frequency up and down the polar spine of the Earth, that polarized field between the poles running through the planet. This frequency is radiated through the inner and outer ecospheres of Earth by the inner and outer resonant cavities. The inner resonant cavity, ecosphere of the hollow Earth, charges the surface crystalline grid of the planet, which interchanges frequencies with the outer resonant cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. The entire process brings about a holistic media attunement through which all life becomes the sensor system of the planet. In order for biological species, human, animal, and vegetal, to maintain the life wave energies, they must focus their neurosensors upon various frequency amplitudes on the geodynamic spectrum. This spectrum is a complex computer-like scale, registering codes or packages of cognitive directives created through the assimilation of various Earth, solar, stellar processes. These code packages are X-grams, that's X-G-R-A-M-S. And it's referring to issue 480 of the source that's talking about X-grams more definitively. They are like energy programs for the Earth's ether computer printouts, giving the exact vibratory patterns of the many different parallaxes in which the neural activity of a brain-mind complex can align itself by cerebral rotation. The inner world inhabitants can, through a series of tonal frequencies and or light patterns, command brain alignment to whatever geodynamic parallax is chosen upon the spectrum. As an example, should there be presented to a subterranean physician a patient whose left arm was paralyzed as a result of an accident, the physician would treat the patient by submitting him to a tonal optic computer. Now remember, this is 1981 when I was writing this, which would locate the geodynamic parallax needed to restore the neural control of the left arm of this individual. Then, through tonal and/or optical stimulus, the patient's critical rotational position for that particular amplitude on the geodynamic scale would be activated. This treatment would almost certainly recover the complete use of the once paralyzed arm. However, it is not as simple as it sounds. Were the programs or X-grams easy to decode, our brain centers would be accidentally stimulated to major CRPs by a succession of honking horns or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, in order to protect our brain-mind centers from violation of their own genetic response codes, which when triggered fit like keys into the locks of the X-gram. The programs of the Earth's ether computer are complex and require intricate maneuvering of vibratory frequencies to elicit a major CRP. Let me stop here a moment. First of all, it speaks about the DNA, but the DNA is being responsive to the CRPs in this instance, and not the other way around. Secondly, it's talking about the intricate maneuvering of the vibratory frequencies to elicit a major CRP. This means that just because the planet has opened a sheath and said, okay, there's more sensory input here on a subliminal level. You know, here's your feast at the table. But we don't have the right spoons, knives, and forks. We don't have the right vision to even locate the food on the table. That's because our CRPs are not adjusted to that extrasensory input. So the next part of the program has to be to realign those critical rotational positions. And this is done by giving specific unlocking codes. And once that trigger is made, then boom, 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 that alignment's made. And one more trigger, boom, 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 that alignment's made. Now, it's not like they have to unlock everything, but they have to, these codes are going to be unlocking major points, and the major points will in turn unlock the rest, just by, default, so to speak. To continue. Minor CRPs are constantly being stimulated in our brain by sunlight, inaudible and audible sound waves, the motion of the earth, and other sense factions of our world. These minor or lesser CRPs are critical in the creation of our reality. The major or greater CRPs are intended to serve as major adjustments for our sensors when our biosystems become radically out of step with the geodynamic spectrum in some aspect. Well, I think it's safe to say that we've been radically out of step for some time, on the surface of the earth anyway. The activating of major critical rotational positions perform much the same function as a circuit breakers in recharging deactivated neural pulses and reestablishing the proper circadian rhythms in erratically cycled neural pulses within our body schematic. This process is also evidenced in the vegetal world. The CRPs of plants have been radically detected. No, I'm sorry, it's not radically, that's radionically detected. In The Secret Life of Plants, this movement is stated as apparently, quote, apparently established by the Earth's magnetic field as seed sprouts out of the ground. If the seedling is transplanted in such a way that it continues to grow in its CRP, it will thrive better than plants which have been transplanted out of that orientation, because this apparent relationship within the geomagnetic field let me start over on that one again. Because of this apparent relationship with the geomagnetic field, a plant has a pattern of radiation around it. Node points within this pattern or web, which seem to concentrate the field of radiation, can be located by a portable detector with a probe and a rubbing plate similar to that on their radionics device. Like plants, animals, now I'm saying, that's the end of the quote, and we're back to me again, and I'm saying, like plants, animals, and humans also radiate a pattern about them. Through sophisticated plasma-based computers, interterrestrial technicians can locate not only the node points within the pattern, but their coded message, giving them the CRPs connected to the body's acupoints. Paragrams are visual and tonal image refinements of aforementioned programs of human-earth symbiosis, the directives of organization. The paragrams are the images created by the exgrammic function we see in our world as a constant procession of signs and symbols. A stop sign is a paragram of our design. It is a form of communication through visual display, a product of human thought and recognition. Erosion lines upon the side of a mountain are also paragrams, if they relay a symbolic picture to us, whether definable as the shape of a cross, bird, etc., or indefinable, an unknown symbol that is nevertheless noticeable to the recipient in a way that it triggers an etheric association within the brain mind. Any sign, symbol, form, or color variance is a paragram or associate link to the geodynamic spectrum. These, in turn, can stimulate minor and sometimes major CRPs in the modular performance of the biocerebral unit. The subterranean biotechnicians utilize the paragram displayed by the crystal veil of the interior atmosphere in their geocerebral alignment techniques. These paragrams, called heliocentric paragrams, are the most profound image relators displayed to human cognizance by the Earth exgrams. In a balanced whole Earth system, the crystal canopy initiates a multiplex of purposes, one of the most fundamental being the supplying of our own thought centers with the feedback from our own bio-Earth interactions. In order that we may continue to retain and evolve our psychokinetic human systems in step with our inherited spiritual soul body. Oops. I think I missed something there. Let me start over. The question is, where do I start over? Okay, deep breath. In a balanced whole Earth system, the crystal canopy initiates a multiplex of purposes, one of the most fundamental being the supplying of our own thought centers with the feedback from our own bio-Earth interactions, in order that we may continue to retain and evolve our psychokinetic human systems in step with our inherited spiritual soul body, period. At present, surface dwellers receive only a small portion of undistorted images necessary to our holistic growth. The inner world adherence to the sacred images and their naturally retained crystal canopy with its accompanying heliocentric paragrams promotes a greater understanding of the human journey in and on the Earth and the subjective rationale of this planetary abode. Through the stages or initiatory layers of awareness, they strive to breach the confines of three-dimensional relativity and approach the summit, the flawless diamond of sight that is perceived only through the eye of the divine. Although the Central Earth tribes have yet to reach such heights in spiritual ecstasy, their foothold upon the sacred mount is more substantial than is ours of the outer skies. So, bottom line of that is, because we no longer have an ice canopy, we no longer have a crystalline envelope except at the north and south poles. we're missing out on some of the nutrients, the nurturing signals that we can see and pick up and feel and bring into our systems. Even people who have no sight, who are blind, maybe blind from birth, they're picking up on they're picking up on the impulses and the feedback through expanding their other senses. So they're really not lacking. In fact, in some ways, some may be really receiving more because they're reaching out through these subtler fields and attuning themselves to become more subtle in their awareness than those of us who have so much input coming through our optic nerves. Same thing for, like, think of Helen Keller. I mean, she didn't have any of that, and she was totally so attuned to these higher frequencies. To continue, within their marvelous plasmatholic computers are the designs of man and earth, the pageant of mental magic through which humanity reflects the diamond eye in its own tapestry of sequins and dust. While the dominant form of paragrams are visual in our realm of consciousness, tonal symbols are of equal benefaction to our communal parts. Within every neural impulse of every cell of the biological organism is a magnetic field acting as a tuning fork. The sounds of the universe, audible and inaudible, strike these magnetic forks, procuring the precise pitch needed to maintain the life wave within that cell and to unite it in harmonious decree with the millions upon billions of other singing cells in the biosystem. The critical rotational position of the brain determines the channeling of the sonic nuances to the individual cells. The positioning of the skeletal frame, organs, veins, nerves, etc., determines the distribution of the flow of blood through the body. In like manner, so the CRPs of the brain-mind is the regulator of tonal visual receipt in the cells of the body. The inner earth computers, which work with the geocerebral alignment, the CGA-C, are put in use in many areas of action. For instance, the computers involved in the Interspecies Alliance program of interspecies communications, mentioned in issue 180 of the source, are a type of GCA-C unit computer. And it goes on and on. But that's the part I wanted to read to you. And I wanted to read it because I really wanted to impress you upon the science behind these critical rotational positions that we're now redesigning, or not redesigning so much as recalibrating to match the new input that's coming into the planet. So I'm going to conclude with this part 3. I may be doing a part 4, I am not sure, but for now I will conclude here, and we'll see where this takes us. Thank you all for listening.